Good afternoon. The Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment is hereby called to order for its regularly scheduled meeting of June 26, 2024. My name is Tim Rainey. I'm the chairman of the board. Mr. Jeffrey Penza serves as secretary of the board. Mr. Penza, may I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Baker.
Here.
Ms. Bostic.
Here.
Mr. Claybrook.
Here.
Ms. Skurlock.
Here.
Vice Chair Savage Selden.
Present.
And Chair Rainey.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. The Memphis and Shelby County Board of Adjustment is the oldest appointed governmental body in Memphis and Shelby County. We were established in 1925. The board hears appeals from the administration of the zoning ordinance, requests for variances from the zoning ordinance, and other requests as articulated by local zoning laws adopted pursuant to the enabling legislation. The 8 members of the board are appointed, 4 by the mayor of Memphis and 4 by the mayor of Shelby County, with confirmation by the Memphis City Council or Shelby County Board of Commissioners. We serve without remuneration. At this time, I'd like to swear in the staff. May you remain seated. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, thank you. May I get a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting?
So moved. Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Mr. Secretary, could you provide us a secretary's report if you have one this month, and then explain the procedure for today's meeting?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. As for a secretary report, there are no announcements this afternoon. The procedure for this meeting will be as follows. I will introduce each case as listed on the agenda. Copies of the agenda can be found at the front podium. For each case, the planner with the Division of Planning Development will give a presentation. At the conclusion of the staff presentation, the applicant will have 5 minutes to present his or her case. After the applicant's presentation, those speakers in support will have a total of 5 minutes, then those speakers in opposition will have a total of 10 minutes. And then finally, the applicant will have 2 minutes to provide rebuttal. These times do not include time for questions from and answer to members of the board. The chairman may provide additional time provided both sides are given an equal amount of additional time. All parties who wish to provide testimony to the board will be sworn in by the chairman. If a member of the audience wishes to provide testimony in support of or in opposition to a particular case on today's agenda, he or she will need to fill out a speaker's card for the record. Speaker's cards are available at the front podium. Once filled out, speaker's cards can be submitted to any DPD staff member at the left podium. We do not need speaker's cards from the applicants since their names are already part of the record. After all parties have been heard, the board will close the public hearing, make a motion, and then deliberate on the case. If an applicant or any speaker would like to be heard after the conclusion of the public hearing, or if a board member wishes to hear additional testimony from any party, a 2/3 vote is required to reopen the public hearing pursuant to the board's rules of procedure. Please note that once the public hearing is reopened, both the applicant and opposition will be allowed to provide additional testimony and or rebuttal. All motions by this board will be made in the affirmative. The private acts governing the board require the affirmative vote of at least 5 members to approve an application, regardless of the number of board members present. The board may also vote to hold an application for a period of not to exceed 3 months with the consent of the applicant or 1 month without the consent of the applicant. All section numbers that we refer to come from the Memphis and Shelby County Unified Development Code, or the UDC, which was adopted by the Memphis City Council and Shelby County Board of Commissioners in August of 2010 and became effective on January 1st, 2011. I will introduce the entire UDC and make it part of today's record, thus dispensing with the reading of individual sections. The board is vested with the power to act on these cases before us today under the provisions of Chapter 9.22 of the UDC. Mr. Chairman, I submit that all cases have been filed in proper order, all applicants have been notified of this hearing, and all notice requirements have been fulfilled as required by the UDC.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. At this point, the board will establish a consent agenda. To establish the consent agenda, the secretary will call out each eligible case. If any member of the audience, staff, or board member objects to a case being placed on the consent agenda, he or she should make their objection known by a show of hands when the secretary reads that case. Once the consent agenda is established, the board will vote on all cases placed on that agenda as a whole and will not hold individual public hearings on those cases. Mr. Secretary, which items on our agenda are eligible to be placed on consent this
I would
week?
first like to note items number 1 and 6 have been withdrawn.
Okay, thank you.
Item number 2, BOA 2024-21 at 4 South Hume Street as approval with conditions. Item number 3, BOA 2024-30 at 3427 Tally Ho Road as approval with conditions. Item number 4, BOA 2024-39 at 9610 Osborne Road as a hold for 1 month. Item number 7, BOA 2024-42 at 1497 Titus Road as a hold for 1 month. Item number 9, BOA 2024-46 at 5567 Winchester Road as approval with conditions. Item number 10, BOA 2024-47 at 3555 Winoka Avenue as approval with conditions. Item number 11, BOA 2024-48 at 4855 Elvis Presley Boulevard as approval with conditions. Item number 12, BOA 2024-49 at 2524 Avery Avenue as approval with conditions. Item number 13, BOA 2024-50 at 5540 Poplar Avenue as approval with conditions. Item number 14, BOA 2024-51 at 3873 Galloway Drive as approval with conditions. Item number 16, BOA 2024-54 at 3622 Kearney Avenue as approval with conditions. Item number 17, BOA 2024-55 at 3964 Wales Avenue as approval with conditions. Item number 18, BOA 2024-56 at 443 Angeles Street as approval with conditions. Item number 19, BOA 2024-57 at 4921 Winchester Road as approval with conditions. And finally, item number 20, BOA 2024-59 at 7204 State Line Road as approval with conditions.
Okay, thank you. May I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as established by the secretary, which is items 2 and 3, approval with conditions, 4 and 7 as holds, and then 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 as approval with conditions.
So moved.
Second.
I'm going to remind y'all before we vote that by voting on the consent agenda, each board member confirms he has read the staff report and is in full agreement with the conditions. Mr. Secretary, may I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Bostic,
Yes.
Mr. Claybrook,
Yes.
Ms. Scurlock,
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Selden,
Yes, I find that the standards of the UDC of 9.22.6 are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
and Chair Rainey.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, so the motion carries. So if you're here for any of those cases, you've been approved per the staff report. So y'all are free to go. And now we're going to hear our, if you'll call the first case we're going to hear today, Mr. Secretary.
Item number 5, BOA 2024-40 at 587 Houston Street.
Okay, thank you. See the applicants present. Did we have any opposition? We did. Okay, thank you. All right, and then if Ms. Hull, if you could give us a staff report, please.
Hello, I'm Latanya Ho with the Division of Planning and Development. I'm here to present case number BOA 2024-0040. The applicant is Houston Street Properties LLC. The location is 587 through 619 Houston Street. And the requests are variances to allow multifamily housing development in the University District. Before you is a location map. As I mentioned, this property is in the University District. Here's a vicinity map. Applicants within 500 feet were notified of this application. The zoning map shown here with the subject property highlighted in yellow. It's in the RU3 district. It's surrounded by RU3 district. This particular property is in the CMU1 district. A land use map shows the property in yellow with surrounding uses, which are residential and institutional. These are site photos of the site looking south on Houston Street. The subject property is to the right on the picture at the bottom. This is a picture looking north on Houston Street. The subject property is to the left of the photo. This is an area photo. The subject property is highlighted in yellow, noting the University District parking lots to the east. Here are the site plans. Just a little bit of background. This project was scheduled to come before the board last month. The applicant has since revised the site plan. This is just a side-by-side comparison of the two site plan. Very similar building layouts. The primary concern with the case were related to parking and traffic issues. So the applicant was able to reduce the number of units by 16. They reduced slightly the number of parking spaces that were deficient. So it's 151 parking spaces that they're currently deficient. And they addressed previous fire concerns that were raised by the fire department. This case went before the board previously as well. The board approved the site plan that you see on your screen. At that time, it was a single building that you see here to the south, with a parking lot to the north. The new development that was proposed as a part of this application added a building on that parking lot that was approved. And that has ultimately caused an issue with parking. So since parking is the primary concern, I want to just touch on that really quickly. On August 25th, 2021, the Board of Adjustment approved with conditions case BOA 2021-083. The BOA approved site plan met all the parking requirements at the time. The applicant added a building with this case where the previously approved parking spaces were located. The addition increased the number of bedrooms from 195 to 338. And created a parking deficit, as the UDC requires 220 parking spaces now for the number of units that are provided. The applicant is providing 59 on-site parking spaces for which they propose to charge residents nearly $200 a month, and 10 on-street parking spaces for a total of 69 parking spaces out of the 220 that are required. The unmet parking need is 151 spaces. The applicant plans to market the development primarily to University of Memphis students who it anticipates will hold a parking pass for university general parking. Any non-student tenant will have to pay for on-site parking or park on nearby streets. The applicant is depending on the University of Memphis general parking lots number 15, 18, and 20 to provide the additional 151 parking spaces required for the development. On your screen, I've done a photo of the current parking for the university that's provided by the university and future plans. And this is important because we have received opposition from the University of Memphis as well as one of the development corporations regarding this issue. On your left is currently what parking looks like. The subject property is highlighted in yellow. The 3 lots specifically mentioned by the applicant that they would like to use for parking are highlighted in blue. Lot 15 and Lot 18 are immediately across the street. Lot 18 is a garage. Lot 15 is open parking. And a couple of blocks over is Lot 20, which is open parking. According to the university master plan on their website, their intention is to develop the South Campus. That development includes the addition of several buildings, which is the navy blue buildings in the photo, and one of those buildings is student housing. As a result of that development, Lot 15 will no longer be available for parking. It will be built and developed for housing and other buildings. Lot 18 will remain, which is the garage, and portion of Lot 20 will remain as well. According to the university's website, they will be losing, according to the numbers, they'll be losing approximately 45% of the parking that they have when they do their development. In regard to public opposition regarding the parking concerns, the University of Memphis submitted a letter, and their primary issue was that the applicant had not discussed or attained approval from the university to utilize property under their control to facilitate the development. The university stated they cannot provide parking spaces on its lots to accommodate development for reasons, as we mentioned. The university's master plan calls for future development of student housing on the South Campus, which would be built on Lot 15, thus eliminating the parking on which the applicant is depending. And any parking remaining on Lot 15 will be dedicated options for student housing in the university's planned development. The University Neighborhood Development Corporation has indicated that there is no guarantee that the amount of currently available on-campus student parking will continue to be available. Non-student residents will have to park on already congested city streets, creating an overload of on-street parking, congestion, and illegal double parking in the neighborhood. And lastly, there's a possibility of a hindrance of emergency vehicles from reaching their destination in a timely manner. The applicant since submitted a letter to DPD with additional information. So as staff, I took all of that information into consideration, and my primary concern and reasons for rejecting the application is that obviously, 151 parking spots is a lot. In my opinion, it's a lot to depend on street parking for, as well as to depend on university for. The applicant's addition of a building to increase units and profit could cause a public burden. There is no guarantee that the applicant will achieve the student tenant percentages that they're aiming for. Non-student tenants will be required to park on the streets, which could cause parking issues. And if the applicant does achieve the student tenant expectations, it still puts a burden on the University of Memphis parking. In conclusion, there was a previously approved board where the applicant requested the development of a unit, of a multifamily housing development with 92 units that met the parking requirements as required by the UDC. The applicant is requesting this variance to add additional units and an additional building, which has increased this number of parking needed. The project as proposed requires variances from several subsections, including regarding building width, parking setbacks, and ground floor transparency, trash collector screening, the maximum length of uninterrupted fencing, off-street and on-street parking, and landscape buffers. Staff finds that the need of this variance is caused by the applicant's addition of a building where the parking lot was located, which eliminates the on-site parking that was approved and required by the previous BOA case, and created this deficit of 151 parking spaces. Staff received letters of concern from the University of Memphis due to the negative impact that granting the variance will have on its parking, as well as from the University Neighborhood Development Corporation citing traffic congestion and parking-related issues as a reason of their objection. Concerns previously addressed by the fire departments have been addressed. The applicant has submitted a letter to the Division of Planning and Development with additional background information and revised plans for consideration on this case. The letter and the university's response can be found in the staff report starting on page 36. After a careful review of these documents, staff does not feel the changes made by the applicant have sufficiently addressed the parking deficit caused by the addition of the second building at the site. Staff still recommends rejection of this request that allows a revision of the site plan that was previously approved by the BOA case. Staff recommends that the applicant be required to develop the site in accordance with the approved case, BOA 2021-083, and the conditions that are set forth in this report. The granting of this variance will cause substantial detriment to the public good. It will substantially impair the intent and purpose of an adopted plan or the UDC, and it will be injurious to the neighborhood and the general welfare if it were approved. Staff recommends rejection. However, if approved, staff recommends conditions that are outlined on page 20 of the staff report. That concludes my presentation.
Are there any questions for Ms. Hall? Ms. Hall, I have a quick question for you.
Yes.
The prior approved plan from 2021, was parking one of the variances there, or was there enough parking originally because there was a lot more parking compared to bedrooms before?
That plan met the required parking.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, if the applicant will come forward, give your name and address for the record for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Josh Whitehead, 275 Jefferson Avenue.
Okay, and you're operating as an attorney here, so I'm not going to swear you in. Why don't you go ahead and share with us?
Thank you. I'm joined here by Zach Channing, my client, the developer, as well as Victor Buchholz, the architect who designed the building from LRK. We agree with many of the concerns of not only DPD, but also what we believe are the concerns of the University of Memphis that they'll articulate during their testimony. Next slide, please. And to address those concerns, we'd like to differentiate our project from many of the projects that have caused this concern and the amendments to the overlay district that were the product of that concern. Here we have an aerial view of some of the larger student housing projects, and I should say student housing projects that were presented to you in the instance of Building A to the City Council as student projects, but have become more conventional market rate housing over the years. We are going to do everything we can to avoid the conversion that happened with these buildings with our buildings. Next slide. This is and I really appreciate the staff analysis as well as staff inserting my very voluminous letter into the staff report that starts on page 36. This presentation is based upon that letter, but it will not be as lengthy, I promise. So those buildings, when you look at the 1 and 2 bedroom unit percentages, you run from the annex, which is the newest building on Midland at 53%, down to the 9, which is at the corner of Brister and Minders at only 24%. We have found that the student population at the University of Memphis, given the commuter nature of the school, you can more easily find 1 or 2 roommates that are going to room together and rent an apartment than you can 3 or 4 bedroom units. So we believe the distinction between the number of 1 and 2 bedroom units compared to 3 and 4 bedroom units is crucial. And so we have kept our smaller units as high as possible, in fact, higher than our competitors, to ensure that it remains student housing. Why are we doing this? As Ms. Hall mentioned, we are relying upon the fact that our students, as students of the University of Memphis, will have hang tags where they can park at the University of Memphis parking facilities. And we want to avoid the situation in which you have two seas of parking across the street from each other on Houston. Next slide, please. And to the question about our older project, it probably did meet the parking ratio that was in place at the time. The parking ratio in the University District overlay has changed over the years. As many of us recall, it was written originally to have no parking requirements, which mirrored the parking requirements here downtown in the CBD zoning district. Based upon some of the issues I articulated and Ms. Hull articulated earlier, that was bumped up to half a space per bedroom in 2018 to now in 2022, 0.65 parking spaces per bedroom, which exceeds many of the multifamily requirements throughout the city. Next slide. And it's actually the opposite of the trend that you see nationwide with regard to housing. I mentioned in my letter, these cities in red are citywide parking agnostic zoning ordinances. In other words, there are no parking requirements in those cities highlighted in red. Jackson, Tennessee is oddly enough the one closest to us, but there are several university cities listed here: Charlottesville, Virginia, Austin, Texas, etc. Tucson has a very similar situation as Memphis, in which they have a university overlay, and that's home of the University of Arizona. Their university overlay parking requirement is 0.5 spaces per unit, and we do incidentally meet that for whatever it's worth. Next slide. Another distinction between some of those earlier projects and ours is the proximity to University of Memphis parking. We in blue are directly across the street from a surface parking lot that may or may not be redeveloped in the future, but catty corner and nearly directly across the street from a parking garage that was just built and probably has a lifespan of 30 to 50 years. As compared to our competitors in red, some are adjacent to those parking garages, but many are not. Next slide, please. And here, just to drive the point home, here's our site with the surface parking across the street. Next slide. And the parking garage catty corner. Next slide. In addition to the parking facilities, there is a blue line that the University of Memphis runs, a bus line that circumnavigates the university campus, and there's a stop nearby. Next slide. And I'll close with this, and I'll allow Mr. Poteet to give his testimony so we can be responsive to that. But this just demonstrates the changes we have made since our original submittal in April. We have reduced the number of units by 6, the number of bedrooms by 16, and increased the number of off-street parking by 14. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm available for any questions.
Okay, are there any questions of the applicant?
Yes, I have a question. I want to make sure I understood what you said correctly. Did you say that the higher percentage of 1 to 2 bedroom units make it less likely for non-students to rent there? That's what I thought I heard you say.
I may have said that, but can I rephrase? the greater the increase in 1 and 2 bedrooms increases the likelihood that students would be attracted to those units as compared to the larger 3 and 4 bedroom units.
Well, why wouldn't just non-students be more attracted to 1 and 2 bedroom than 4 bedroom? I don't understand that.
Well, it's not necessarily that non-students are not attracted, it's that non-students are more attracted to the 3 and 4 bedroom units than students. It's really about those 3 and 4 bedroom units that are unattractive to students because it's hard to group. We have found in our research in the university area, it's hard to attract groups of 3 and 4 students compared to 1 and 2 roommate situations.
But that's why they were designed that way in the first place, right? Because they thought 4 students would.
Mr. Channing is proficient in this subject matter, and I'll allow him to speak to that during the rebuttal. But yes, ironically, the intention was that those 4-bedroom units would be attractive to students. It just has not, at least in Memphis, panned out that way as much as hoped.
Okay, I have one other question, and I don't know if you're the right one to answer it or not, or maybe later, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it. Rent rates for each of these types of units, can you go through those?
When Mr. Channing gets up, I'll have
Okay,
him
that's
address
fine,
that.
yeah.
Any other questions?
If we can, just answer it now.
Yeah,
You ready?
that's fine. Yeah, if you'll give your name and address for the record for us.
Hey everyone, my name is Zach Channing, 183 at One Long Lake Drive, Boca Raton, Florida. I'm happy to answer.
Oh, and let me swear you in real quick.
Oh, go
You
ahead.
swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so be God?
I did.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
So your first question again was,
Oh, I'm just looking for how much does it cost to rent one of these 4-bedroom, one of the 2-bedroom, the different arrangements of bedroom units that you have?
I would say a 4-bedroom is probably around about $700 a month. A 3-bedroom is around $750 to $785. A 2-bedroom is probably, I said a 3-bedroom, yeah, it's a 3-bedroom. A 2-bedroom would be about $850, and a 1-bedroom and studio would be between $1,100 and $1,300.
But
And-
that's per bedroom.
Either per bedroom or for the 1-bedrooms per unit.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so per bedroom.
Gotcha.
And your other question was,
Okay, wait a minute, let me make sure I understand that. $700 for 4-bedroom, that's per bedroom?
$700 per
$2,800.
bedroom, so you multiply
Oh,
that by
okay, I
4, so
thought.
it's $2,800 for the unit.
Man.
She was about to move in.
Yeah. I was going to call all my friends and let them know you had a bargain going. Okay, all right, so in 3-bedroom, $350 to $375.
No, so 1-bedroom, $700, 2-bedroom, around $850, and this is just range, I'm giving you off the spot. 3-bedroom, probably $750 to $775, and what am I missing? The 1-bedroom? The 1-bedroom would be between $1,100 for the studio or $1,150 to $1,300.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have another question about demand or students?
Her other question was, it seems like it stated that the smaller units
Yes.
are more attractive to students.
Yes, that's
and the
correct.
larger units are more attractive to
So
non-students.
We found, and I've been in this market for about 5 years, and I've worked very closely with the university, actually creating this plan for this project. And our concept was to be more geared towards graduate students and being more of a boutique property. And what we found was that the other projects that weren't doing as well had the standard 4 bedrooms, 4-bathroom unit, which is what you see all over the country. And the reason you see those is because economically they make more sense, because you only need 1 bathroom, 4 bedrooms, they make the most money. But what we see at the University of Memphis is that there's not enough groups of friends. It's not a big Greek life. It's still, on the edge of commuter versus, a real, traditional 4-year university. So there's too many 4-bedroom units in these projects where they can't fill up with groups of friends. So they're actually doing roommate matching. And what they did was during COVID, these projects ran into so many issues that non-students were coming to the projects because the rent was so attractive at $700, and they started actually filling them up with non-students. So what we see in the market is that there's not enough studios, there's not enough 2-bedrooms, there's not enough smaller units, and that the grad student program has been growing. This is what I created with the old CFO at the university to really attack that missing market at the University of Memphis. And that's why our 1s and 2s and smaller units are higher than any of the competition.
Okay. All right, any other questions before we move to the opposition? And about how much time did we have left, Vice Chair?
He had 3, and then plus the 2.
3, so about 5 minutes for rebuttal. All right, I have some opposition here. Is Tony Poteet here? Good afternoon. Yeah, if you can give your name and address for the record, please.
Tony Poteet, 4783 Bowling Hughes Road.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. And we want to start out, from the university standpoint, we're not in opposition to this project. Our goal is to increase on-campus housing. This is adjacent to the campus, and we value student life on the campus. But I do want to focus on the parking and the impacts, because we're not only concerned about this project, but any precedents that it might set. We have, we've talked about kind of the ownership and the orientation towards students. I think what we found is over time, there's no guarantee that students would live here. There's no guarantee really of who the owner would be. We see these projects get flipped. At least that's what's happened surrounding us. And then we've had issues with this current parking lot already in terms of overflow into this lot from an adjacent development. And what's occurred is, I don't know if so much it's the people living there, but their friends. It's very accessible. It's easy for them to have parties, and they wind up having parties and gatherings in the parking lot late at night, and we're wound up with the trash and sometimes crime, theft, and different things that really puts an obligation onto the university. So when that really occurred, we stepped in and installed gates and fencing around this lot, and pretty much threatened to close the lot at night to all parking. Now, I don't know if it would ever come to that, but that's what was discussed, and I just thought it was an important item given that past history. The other item, of course, we talked about the future plans for the property. So, this obligation that you're talking about for this project would be in perpetuity for the life of the project, which would conflict obviously with development of the property. And we're really concerned even of the legality of burdening state property with private development. Typically anything we do, the State Building Commission, the Attorney General, and the governor has to approve any obligations on state property. So I think the board, I would hopefully that you really think of this piece of property and you think, does it have a special condition or not? Does it deserve a variance? And then the intent of the code, which is the public good, not pushing cars out onto a very narrow street, such as the really tight problems we have on the north side of the track. What's happened there is cars parked on both sides of the street, no matter how many signs say no parking. The police have stopped assigning tickets, and the fire department, I can just imagine a disaster happening, not being able to get to any of those buildings because the streets are not wide enough. So we're just interested in, not burdening the state. And then I would think that there are some alternatives to this, possibly getting more land, possibly building a podium-style apartment. I do know that if the project does not go through, that the university is still, and we've expressed to the developer, we're still interested in purchasing this property. We just didn't have the resources at the time when it was available, but it is in our land acquisition zone, and we had planned on putting housing there anyway. So, any questions from the board?
Go ahead.
Do you have any thoughts about why it is that no parking or low parking requirements work in these other cities, but not in Memphis?
Well, it's just that there's an alternative transportation. We have no alternative transportation. Our students that live on campus, 60 to 70% have cars, and the older they get, the more likely they are to have a car. So it's just, it's still inexpensive enough for a student to own a car, pay insurance, and pay gas, rather than rely on public transportation, because it just doesn't exist.
One more thing, do you have any thoughts about this whole question about if you have 4-bedroom units then you're going to be more likely to get non-student rather
Well,
than
we've
1 to
done
2.
market studies, and they do show that you need a mix, and they do show the value and obviously the return on the studio apartments because they're a much higher rent. In our case, for 4 bedrooms, if the students are not able to pair themselves up, they get paired up if they want to live there.
I have a question. Does University of Memphis have university student transit like UT or?
We have a shuttle system. It's 3 shuttles total, 3 buses, small buses total. One of them runs back and forth to main campus to Park campus, and then the other 2, for some odd reason, you usually see them following each other around the main campus. But we do have I would say, a very conservative small shuttle system.
But they're really just taking you campus to campus. They're not taking you to Kroger.
No.
They're not, or
No,
anywhere
they
else
just
in
circle
town.
the campus.
Gotcha.
And they'll pick you up, they go through the parking lot so you can get on and go to the English building or wherever, but it's
Okay.
all within campus.
All right.
Quick question on the proposed, it looks like you guys are reducing some of your parking for housing. So are you supplementing that parking in other areas?
Yes,
or-
ma'am. One explanation on this image that come from our master plan on the right is Lot 18 is an existing parking garage, but the building that you see in dark blue that is just south of it is an addition to that parking garage. So as we take up surface parking by future apartment student housing, we would pick that, we'd have to add on to the garage.
How full in general is university's parking already? Like, is it pretty full during a normal?
21,000 students, 10,000 spaces. So it's at the start of the semester, it's very full. It's another kind of time of day thing.
Sure.
Afternoons not so much, on night it fills back up pretty much, and it's also a function of enrollment.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So is there anybody else here to speak in opposition? Okay. So we have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
The first thing I want to start with is if you can look at page 58 in our package. I didn't just come up here and come up with this plan without talking to the university first. I've been working with the university for over 5 years. We have a very good relationship. The people who I did work with, they're no longer here anymore, so the relationship isn't as good anymore. I hope we can make it good again, but I do have a letter of support here from the CFO, sitting CFO, interim CFO at the time for this plan. And I think you should read the letter because they did a very good job addressing it. So I didn't just come up and just do this. So I got this letter of support. I had many meetings with this interim CFO. So in staff's presentation, when they said that I did not meet with the university, that's not true. I did meet with them. I got a letter of support. From that letter of support, I moved forward. I hired my professionals. I started working on this. I spent close to $40,000 based on this support from the university. I didn't know that they changed their mind until I saw the staff report last month. That's why I pushed this for a month. As far as the blue line, he said that they don't go to Kroger. That's actually not true. On the weekends, it goes to Kroger and maybe someplace downtown, but it does go to Kroger on the weekends. It goes around campus. You also have Highland Strip that's right next door. And the University of Memphis and the University of Arizona example, it was taken because that's where I went to college and that's where I started investing in student housing. When I went to school there was no housing on campus. Everyone had cars. Now you have mid-rises and high-rises that are right on campus. No one has cars anymore. It's because they made the campus more walkable by building closer and encouraging your students to not have cars. If we can encourage our students, University of Memphis is walkable. Right across the street from me is the gym and the pool and the rec center. You got shopping and dining right down the street. You have the bus that takes you to Kroger. I still have the 0.5 spaces per unit, but also I think there's an opportunity here, which is why I got that approval letter at the time that there's thousands and thousands of parking spaces right across the street, and I own the houses across the street. I see what's going on there every single day. Those lots are empty. They're pretty much always empty. And also, yes, the University of Memphis made me an offer to buy my property because my property is also in their future campus plan as student housing, like they're saying the one across the street is. But we couldn't agree on a price because it was a very low price. And I am open to selling in the future. I mean, I guess pretty much what I'm saying, one more comment before I run out of time. What I'm proposing to do, I don't see it being illegal with the state because all I'm saying is that general parking, which is what all three of these lots are, it comes with your admission. If you are a student at the University of Memphis, you get general parking, so you're allowed to park there. So I think it's an opportunity to add more beds, add smaller units, add units that are missing at the University of Memphis, because right now there's not enough housing there. They are putting their students at the moment in off-campus housing because there's not enough housing. So this is a problem that I have been working with the university on and trying to solve, and I have a letter of support. Things obviously have changed. But I do think it's a good idea, and I know other people have as well.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to close out here. I feel like we have about a minute left. Ms. Hull, if you could advance a slide. When the University District Comprehensive Plan was adopted, one more, it identified this area and the areas around the university campus as parts of the city where high-density housing adjacent to the university was required and needed to make the university a more sustainable campus. Next slide, please. And in fact, this street, the west side of Houston, was identified for an upzoning. Next slide. Not only an upzoning, but a height restriction relaxation to allow 5 stories and made into a designated street, which is an important factor in the overlay language. Next slide, please. So very quickly, I think Ms. Hall disseminated a handout that that contains our requested conditions of approval. These are based upon the conditions found on page 20 of your staff report. Importantly, 1B is being struck. We do not, while it is true we now need a parking variance, where we did not used to need a parking variance, we now no longer need what is probably the most important function in the University District overlay, at least on the frontage roads, and that is building frontage. We now have a 69% building frontage along our lot because we have eliminated one of the parking lots. Numbers D and E, where we'd like to reduce the 5-foot setback and landscape strip from 5 to 4 feet. Please keep in mind that most of the properties behind us are multifamily. Next slide, if you will. In fact, the last slide. These last 3 conditions, next slide, please, are found in your staff report. These were the ones requested in my letter that we believe, at least 11 and 12, will ensure that this project remains mostly student housing. With that, Mr. Chairman, I heard the Vice Chair's alarm go off.
Yeah. Are there any questions?
I'll wait for discussion.
We'll wait for discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Well, with that, I guess we would like to discuss if we could get a motion to approve BOA 2024-40 as conditioned by staff.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All right. Discussion.
Now, help me understand, for bulk variances, right? Is there the same requirements for the practical difficulty and all of that, or is it just?
That would be a question of staff.
Sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
Quick question, just trying to refresh my memory, if you will. For bulk variances, do they have the same requirement of the practical difficulty, all of that?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess to me, I'm trying to figure out from our original approval, the addition where that practical difficulty is. I know before we kind of ironed out on our first approval, kind of, identifying those practical difficulties, all the other
There was a ditch that was a big problem between the two areas, which had to do with some of the frontage deal. We could not go over that.
Right.
And that was one of the big things we spent most of our time talking about last time.
Okay. So I guess with this additional building, does that add to the difficulty, or are we still?
It removes the need for that variance because now we have more frontage, because we're using that northern part north of the ditch becomes frontage to the street.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
That's the main thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But now we have the parking issue. Before we had plenty of parking because we had this whole area that we
Right.
couldn't connect
Right.
to the
Okay.
to the site.
Thank you for that.
Other thoughts?
I do remember this project, but I do have issues with, just as a general concept, private development having to rely on the university providing parking, even though it is supposed to service university students. That is a conflict there, because the university has the right at any time to demolish the parking garage, to relocate it to a better location and put student housing there for themselves and relocate it. I mean, the private development shouldn't have to rely on the parking of the university. That's just my quandary.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with that. I have that concern as well.
You know, taking everything that we have, like the letter that's now dated would have been very helpful if that was still the university's stance. We're like, hey, we'd love to have somebody come help us build some stuff and use our parking, but it doesn't sound like that's what the current university is saying.
Right.
Right.
Especially given that they see
Yeah.
and they could do a tower. That not be there for the private development.
Well, I just think that things have changed over time too, because I can recall, when the beginning conversations about the university overlay and the no parking requirement and so on. And I believe that the issue with the non-student rental in the buildings was not really, people didn't think of that happening, or at least not the people that I talked to at the time. And so I just think that, and I think that just like the gentleman presented there, the idea that if you just build it like that, people will get rid of their cars and they'll start walking and everything. We all thought that would happen, but it just really has not happened. So there's that aspect of it too, I think.
Let me ask a question of staff real quick, just to understand our conditions. Because they got their first variance on this a while back. So they need something to be able to keep that, is that correct? Or they're
Correct.
good?
I believe their original variance from the BOA 2021-83 case is expired by now. So if you were to approve it as conditioned by staff, it would essentially just re-up your approval from
Okay.
a few years ago.
That's what I thought, I was making sure. All right, any other comments? Did you have your hand up, April? No, All right, if there's no other comments, I assume you're ready to vote. Mr.
And just to be clear, so a yes vote would actually be with our conditions to approve it as.
It would be as conditioned by
Staff.
this staff, yeah.
Wait a minute now, you're confusing me now.
So even though we recommended rejection, our approval conditions would re-up the approval from 2021. So it's basically the old plan that had the parking that would meet it.
So if we want it to go back to the originally approved plan, we would vote yes?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Chairman
Vote
Rainey.
no would not only not approve what they're asking, but it would
Get
not,
rid of
it
everything.
would get rid of everything.
Yeah. Okay.
They'd have to go back to square one.
Correct.
Okay.
Chairman Rainey, I know the discussion's over, or not the discussion, but from the audience, but it looked like Mr. Whitehead was
Asking.
propositioning a possible hold. I wanted to bring that up.
Was it a hold?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, break
Yeah.
the rules that I helped write. Yes, I think if we could get a 30-day hold,
Okay.
that would be a little cleaner to find a way to either resurrect that plan or find something in the middle.
Okay, all right, so do we have a motion from the board for a 30-day hold?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those in favor of a 30-day hold signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No. All right, sorry about that. I don't read lips well, so.
You have girls, you're supposed to.
I'm the worst. All right, so we'll see y'all next month. Okay, thanks. All right, Mr. Secretary, if you'll call our next case for us.
Item number 8, BOA 2024-43 at 1162 Forest Avenue.
All right.
Here we go.
All right. Ms. Longstreet, if you could give us a staff report, please.
Yes. One moment. I'm Alexis Longstreet with Land Use and Development Services. I'll be presenting on BOA case 2024-0043 at 1162 Forest Avenue. This request is a variance from subsection 3.9.2J to allow a raised ground floor foundation height less than 18 inches on a single-family home. The property is located within a historic district, Speedway Terrace. It is zoned RU3. This is the vicinity map noted here on the right. And as well as the land use map designated for vacant, as this lot was originally vacant until the applicant proposed to build a single-family attached duplex on the property. Here's the lot as it said vacant. And so here's the current proposed site plan for this case. This case did go before Landmarks back in October of last year, and they received a stop work order April of 2024, as it was built without the conditioned ground floor elevation height from the approval of Landmarks Commission. So here are the previously approved plans, and if you can note here, here's the front elevation in which it actually shows that ground elevation. And so here's the current construction conditions of the home located at 1162 Forest Avenue, in which it is inconsistent as on one side, I believe the highest is 12, and then on the other side, the highest is 3, as the topography of the lot doesn't promote for it to be even. And so, as I noted earlier, the applicant did receive a conditional approval in October of 2023 from Memphis Landmarks Commission. The building permit was issued November 2023. He then received a stop work order April 2024 due to failure of building with raised ground floor of at least 24 inches, including the porch. That was the condition that was noted in the COA. Recommendation is rejection. However, given that this is a Landmarks case and it just came before us with the due process of needing the variance for not even meeting just the general UDC guidelines of 18 inches, A detailed site plan and elevations have, in keeping with the Speedway Historic District design guidelines, has to be submitted for review to the Landmarks Commission, which will actually be tomorrow. And then the standard, any change or deviation from the site plan upon the determination of the zoning administrator shall be submitted to the Board of Adjustments for review and approval, or administrative review and approval of the DPD. And that concludes my presentation. And the applicant is also present today.
Perfect. All right, any questions for staff?
So, just one question. So the Landmarks Board is voting on this tomorrow, and then it's
Correct.
going to come back to us?
No.
No.
It doesn't come back. They technically have the final say.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? All right,
I have
Go
one
ahead,
just technical question. At one point, you say 18 inches, and another point, 24 inches.
24 is based on the Speedway Terrace, which is why the variance was just, of course, in our variance, the variance that he's applying for was just the simple variance of the UDC code, and that's our code of the 3.9.2J. The 24 inches comes from Landmarks Commission Speedway Terraces.
24 was imposed by Landmarks?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
gotcha, thank you. Other questions? All right, Mr. Long, if you'll give your name and address for the record and let us swear you in.
Yes, sir. Brad Long, 876 River Park Drive, Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead and share with us what's going on.
Yes, sir. Essentially, the bottom line is I made a mistake. There's no one else to blame but me. I completely own this mistake. I will, give you my word, I will not be back here again. I've, upon learning of this mistake, have done everything I can to work with the Historic District and Landmarks to, really anything is an option to, please not make me. None of this matters because I didn't make it 24 inches. So, I personally feel the numbers of inches are a little bit better than was stated. I think it's 18 inches on one side and not in less than 18 inches on the other side. But that's really, doesn't matter because it's not 24 inches. So, but that's why I'm here today. I understand there's been a lot of buzz about foundation heights lately in contextual infills and in historic districts. I'm going to be erring on the side of caution, always in the future, so I'm not here. I feel like there's some room to iron out the details, in construction speak, like we are focused on the form boards and, so I paid for an 18-inch slab here, and it's I think in architectural terms, we're concerned about a finished grade, which in my opinion can be, if you, put a thick layer of mulch on the front, do you measure off that, So I personally feel to standardize everything, it's just to be calculated off the form boards. But again, I'm not here to argue that. It's I just mean to tell you that I meant to make it 18 inches, and it was short of that because of one side, it being higher elevation. And some of this was also due to, there's a nice tree in front that I'm, trying to keep, and so, I can't really dig that out of so anyways, that's how I got here, and, agreed with any recommendations. The site plan, the new elevation plan that was shown, I've actually agreed in addition to the porch with the knee wall to do wainscoting around the sides. So, in my opinion, no one will be able to even tell what the foundation height is. It goes up to the window sills is what I'll do wainscoting. So, just if it needs to go to, understand you guys, this is formality too, but that's all I really have to say.
Any questions for Mr. Long? Appreciate your candor with that. I get it. Not everyone has been so, I screwed up. And we all make mistakes at times. We've told other people in the past, well, we don't want to see you again because it won't go well. So, but I think you knew that already. So, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I will say as well, with the proposed site plan here, Margot Payne with Landmarks has also reviewed, and I believe her recommendation is approval with certain conditions as well, and they may actually be very much well in keeping with what he's proposed here today.
Okay, very good. All right, any other questions? And there's no opposition, correct?
No.
Correct.
Okay, so would y'all like to, we can get a motion to approve BOA 2024-43 as conditioned by staff.
No move.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, Mr. Penzis, you'll give us a roll call, please.
Ms. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Bostic,
Yes.
Mr. Claybrook,
Yes.
Ms. Skirlaw,
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Selden.
Yes, I find that the standards of the UDC of 9.22.6 are being met and will not be unduly detrimental to the properties in the vicinity.
And Chair Rainey.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Secretary, if you'll call our last case.
I was about to say the same.
Item number 15, BOA 2024-52 at 777 Mount Moriah Road.
Okay, thank you. I see the applicant's here. We do have some opposition. Perfect. All right. Ms. Hull, you're up again. Do you want to give us a
sir.
staff report?
Yes, sir. I'm Latanya Hull from DPD. I'm presenting case number 202400052. The applicant is Mindenwood Equity Fund LLC. The location is 777 Mount Moriah Road. The request is a use variance to allow commercial parking as accessory off-site parking. The location is here on the map in the vicinity at Mendenhall and Spotswood. We sent this out with, these are the people who received notices within 500 feet of the property. The zoning is, the property has split zoning. There's RU3, which is residential, immediately surrounding the subject property in yellow. And there's commercial 2 to the north and CMU 1 to the east. The land uses are commercial, residential, and multifamily. These are photos. The first photo is from Spotswood Avenue facing southeast looking towards Mendenhall. The subject property is to the right. That's where the parking lot will be. And this entrance you're looking at, this driveway would be the entrance to the parking lot. The second one at the bottom is also looking straight from Spotswood to the parking lot. This top photo here is looking on South Mendenhall, facing northwest, and this vacant area in front of the apartment complex is actually the parking lot, I'm sorry. And then these are developments, commercial developments here immediately across the street from that proposed lot. Here's an area view as well, multifamily surrounding that parking lot. The site plan is before you. The existing 36-foot driveway to the parking complex will be used as ingress and egress to the parking lot. There are 41 proposed parking spaces. A 15-foot landscape buffer separates the RU residential portion of the site from the parking lot, and a streetscape plate, as required by the UDC and approved by the DPD, will be installed to the south and east along Mendenhall Road and Spotswood Avenue. In conclusion, the applicant is requesting a variance to allow commercial parking, accessory off-site parking on the subject property. The subject property was previously an unused portion of the adjacent apartment complex approved by the BOA in 1964. However, in May 2024, the TRC approved case S 2024-005, which subdivided the property, and now the portion that will be the parking lot is a separate lot. The applicant intends to sell the property to Boyle Trust and Investment Company, which is a company that owns the adjacent commercial strip malls, but the one on either side of the development, for employee parking for several of the surrounding commercial properties. According to the applicant and nearby residents, parking is much needed for employees and patrons of local businesses. As conditioned, no fees may be charged to park or reserve spaces within this lot. The condition intends to prevent the act of parking itself from becoming a viable business, which may hinder the redevelopment of the site in the future. Staff is recommending approval of this request. As a condition of the approval, the applicant must submit a landscape plan for review and approval by the DPD to ensure appropriate landscaping and crosswalks are installed. The granting of this variance will not cause substantial detriment to the public good, nor will it substantially impair the intent and purpose of an adopted plan or the UDC, nor will it be injurious to the neighborhood or the general welfare, and it will be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the UDC. Staff recommends approval with conditions. The conditions: the applicant must install pedestrian crosswalk across Spotswood Avenue and Mendenhall Road. That's subject to approval by engineering. No fees may be charged to park or reserve spaces within the lot. And a final site plan and landscape plan is required, subject to the review and approval by DPD. That concludes my presentation.
Could you go back? It's page 11 of the staff report. And I'm trying to compare like the parking lot. It's the site plan of just the parking lot. So it looks like on the northwest corner of the parcel, there's is that new curb cut? Keep going, go down to your left a little bit. Right there, what are the words? You got the existing curb cut?
That's the existing curb cut, the driveway into the parking lot for the apartment complex. That's what they're going to use as ingress and egress.
So there'll be it'll just be a one wide curb cut, like for the entrance to this parking lot?
So this is the entrance
apartments?
into the property, and then this is the entrance into the parking lot.
Oh, okay. Got it. What does that say? The words that are just in the street above existing curb cut, come down to your left, right there. What does that arrow say?
That is a modified curb cut, but that will not be an entrance to the parking lot.
Okay. Oh, okay, I see the island now. Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Any other questions of staff before we move to the applicant? All right, Ms. Reeves, good to see you.
Hi, how are you? Cindy Reeves, SR Consulting, 5909 Shelby Oaks Drive, Suite 200.
Okay, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead and share with us.
I just want to thank staff for all their work that they've done on this, and we agree with staff recommendation. And I would like to save most of my time for rebuttal because we feel that this is a good solution to a parking problem that they have in the area.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Ms. Cox, you'll come and give your name and address for the record for us?
Jennifer Cox, 4919 Spotswood Avenue.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and share with us.
So I'm representing several of the neighbors in our neighborhood. I've got a petition here that we've gotten signed.
Can you move the microphone a little more? Perfect. Let's go.
I've got a petition here that we've gotten signed. Our primary concern is that the addition of this parking lot with an entrance onto Spotswood Avenue is going to overburden an already really rough intersection. With all these new developments and new businesses with the curb cut, and you can see it right there in the bottom picture, the entrance to the parking lot is immediately following the intersection. There is a second lot curb cut going into the business, but it's an exit only. That first curb cut services a drive-through, in and out.
Real quick, I just want, and you're talking about on the north side of Spotswood for both of these, correct?
Correct.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So the current drive services a drive-through in and out and the parking lot. Our primary concerns revolve around the anticipated increase in traffic and its effects on the main entrance to our neighborhood, particularly on the already burdened two-lane Spotswood Avenue. The current configuration, including an existing curb cut near the intersection of Mendenhall and Spotswood, already causes congestion, and the situation often leads to traffic blockages as only 1 to 2 vehicles can pull out of the parking lot before the entire road is blocked. So you end up being stuck on Mendenhall trying to turn into our neighborhood off the main entrance. Moreover, the influx of these additional vehicles on top of large delivery trucks and 18-wheelers that are currently servicing these businesses that'll be right directly across from this parking lot, we believe, we're not in objection to the fact that more parking is needed. But, with all the developments in these businesses, they've been overdeveloped, and yes, more parking is needed. But with the entrance on Spotswood Avenue, where it's already overburdened, we are in objection to that.
But again, the entrance you're worried about is the one that's in the Torchy's parking lot. That's right as you take the turn and you're like.
Correct.
All right.
That curb cut it's way too close to the intersection, and it causes a lot of major issues. And I've been told by city engineering that it doesn't meet current code.
Right. Does it? Does not. Okay.
It's non-conforming curb cut.
Was it there back when that was bogeys and stuff like that? You know, like in the prior development, they didn't really change curb cuts. They just redid the buildings.
It was there, but they didn't have a drive-through. So the issue is that, there's a definite issue traffic-wise and traffic flow-wise, because the drive-through is configured in a way where people who are exiting the drive-through have to cross people who are entering the parking lot and entering the drive-through. So there's this sort of, oops, I might hit you type of situation where, they have to cross each other's path. Mm-hmm. And I did get a chance to speak it was after the deadline, but I did speak with the resident today. And she explained some of the issues they have with the accidents at that corner and the backed up traffic there. And so the issue being that all of that traffic added by this lot would increase the problem.
Okay. All right, any other questions for Ms. Cox? All right, thank you very much. All right. Oh yeah, if you'll hand that in. Thank you so much. All right, Ms. Reeves.
Thank you. Bull has got a contract to purchase this land for $1 million. They're going to be making almost $500,000 in improvements in order to try to help some of the traffic problems that the neighborhood is having today. If we do know that there is a problem at the intersection of Spotswood and Mendenhall and Mount Moriah, there is nothing that we can really and truly do about that. We're very lucky that we have a successful shopping center at that intersection. As far as slowing down the traffic that's already there, we don't feel that that this parking lot, if it is approved, would increase that, because your cars that are coming out of this parking lot would not be queuing on Spotswood. They're going to be queuing inside the drive and inside the parking lot. So we respectfully disagree that this is going to increase the traffic and make this a worse problem than what it is. And what we're trying to do with this investment in this lot is to try to help some of the parking problems that the neighbors are currently having along Spotswood and in the neighborhood, as far as people parking on the streets whenever they cannot find a parking space in order to go to their facility of choice, to their favorite restaurant or their store or whatever wherever they're going to visit. So we feel that this is a good proposal. It's a very large investment for a piece of property that's less than an acre, but there is supply and demand for somewhere in order to add some more parking spaces. And we felt this was a very good alternative in order to add more parking spaces here. So we would appreciate your vote on this. And I also have Mark Halpern with Bull here, and he can answer any questions that you also have that I have not answered with my rebuttal.
So you mentioned this is mostly for employees. Is that correct, or?
Today, we are saying that it's going to be for employees. 20 years from now, it could be for valet parking. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's not going to be a paid parking lot that when they have the festival, down the Italian festival, they're not going to be sitting there charging $50 a parking space in order to park. This is to serve the shopping center, whether it's employees, valet, or if it comes to a point where the traffic gets to the point where they have to open it up to the public. It's still, it's a gated parking lot. It has a swing arm, so you've got to be able to have permission to get into the lot.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
I have a question or a comment.
Yeah, go for it.
I haven't had a whole lot of time to think about the opposition's comments, but I wanted to consider maybe the likelihood of a condition that might address that. Since this parking lot is going to be used and purchased by Boyle Investment Company, who also owns the commercial property across the street that's causing the issue, is it possible to ask them to address that curb cut as a part of this approval so that it will help to eliminate the traffic issue that they've been facing at that corner? Because although this parking lot doesn't necessarily cause the issue, it does exacerbate the issue because people are going to be exiting that parking lot and turning right towards Mendenhall, and there's already backup from people exiting the drive-through there. So that's just, something that I'd like to throw out there for consideration.
Can I respond to that?
Yes.
As far as moving the curb cut, I'm not sure if you're wanting to move it to the west or if you're wanting to move the curb cut, or how are you wanting us to change the circulation on the property across the street?
I'm just suggesting a possible option for closing it and coming up with some other solution for the drive-through. I don't know, but
we would respectfully ask not to have to close that curb cut. I mean, we would be glad to look at the option after this meeting, but I don't know for sure if that's something that we can consider doing.
Jeffrey, can we even condition another property?
Well, in this case, I would say yes, because it will be the same property owner. The whole point of this parking lot is to sell it to Boyle Investment, and it's directly to serve their property to the north.
I didn't know if we had ever done that, so I wanted to.
Well, usually not when it's someone else's property.
Yeah, got it.
Right now, it's someone else's property.
Right.
That was just a bunny.
I mean, we could also hold the case for a month to see what options, they could look at the options of maybe moving the curb cut or some sort of redesign and talking to city engineering about it to see what those options would be.
It's such a tight.
It's super tight, yeah.
It really is tight, and we would prefer not to hold it for another month because of our contract with the seller. And we would just hopefully think that the board thinks that we really need this additional parking for the area.
Okay.
You were saying that they were going to put gates there, I guess, for restricted access?
Yes, ma'am. There's a swing arm gate that is shown on your site plan on page 11. There you go. So the existing curb cut gets expanded out so that you have enough room for the person going right, the person going left, and the person coming in. So that's the purpose of widening out the curb cut, is so that if somebody were taking a left onto Spotswood, he's not going to back everybody up from taking a right. So we've thought about, getting the traffic out and not holding up that traffic. But the swing arm gate is up closer to the parking lot itself. It does not block the gate that the apartments will also have. The apartments are going to be gated as long as this, and so is this parking lot. Both will be gated.
Question. Would an exit only onto Mendenhall help anything?
On which piece of property?
Huh?
On which piece of property?
On the one that is before us today.
There's not a curb cut on Mendenhall.
But could you not have a curb cut to have exit only onto Mendenhall?
We don't have a curb cut. Nobody's going to be getting to Mendenhall from this piece of property.
But could that happen, I guess I'm thinking?
Oh, you're asking to add an additional curb cut onto
Well,
Mendenhall?
I'm asking if that
Okay.
might solve the problem, because then you'd only have the people coming in, you wouldn't have the ones coming out, as well.
I'm not sure what city engineering would say about that as far as distance, and I don't know. And we not only have distance issues, we've got the curve that is right there in Mendenhall and Mount Moriah.
Would it be worth holding? Oh, you didn't want to hold because of the time factor.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. I mean, we'll be glad to look at it just outside of this. And if we can get approval, then we would do it. But I don't see it as something that is going to benefit the parking issue or the queuing at Spotswood and Mendenhall just by having an exit only onto Mendenhall. Because your people that are wanting to turn right onto Mendenhall, that are turning right off of Spotswood, they're not being impeded and slowed down. They're just taking a right instead of going out to another curb cut out onto Mendenhall. And with the curve that's there, I just don't think that would be, and then you've got the signal right past that. I don't see it something, just thinking off the top of my head and trying to visualize.
It's adding a lot of moving parts
There
there
is.
that aren't moving now.
I don't see
How many spaces are in that lot?
It is
41.
41.
Are there any guidelines in the UDC about the number of spaces on one entrance where you would go to two? I know there is for residential.
There is. And I think it's like 150.
It's that high?
I think it is. Before you have to get to 100, before you get to two, I think it's 150 and above goes to two entrances. So.
Any other questions? All right, okay. Could we get a motion to approve, thank you, Ms. Reeves. Move BOA 24-52 as conditioned by staff?
So move.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I mean, you look at how many businesses are there and how many businesses are, they've got another property across the street. You can't help but think that moving employee parking to this lot is going to help.
Right.
I mean, you think, I don't know how many employees work for each business and how many shifts, but moving those people off premise, or kind of off premise, if you will, but is freeing up spaces within the shopping center and making ease of traffic, in my mind, better. But that's just how my
And having the
brain works.
long-term people be off-site, or however you would consider that, is going to help with traffic too, as opposed to people just going to Torchy's, parking there, and then crossing the street and going through the curb cut, on foot, that's too close and stuff. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's maybe not perfect. I think this site looks great. I understand the issue with that curb cut, but I don't see a good solution of what you can do to make that site work without that curb cut where it is on the north side. So I don't think I'd want to mess with that site. Other comments? All right, Mr. Pensis, will you give us a roll call, please?
Ms. Gerlach,
Yes.
Mr. Claybrook,
Yes.
Ms. Bostic,
Yes.
Ms. Baker,
Yes.
Vice Chair Savage Sullivan.